Okay. So, good morning, everyone. We are discussing My Beloved World by Sonia Sotomayor. So, obviously, after a very difficult childhood, having diabetes, juvenile diabetes, having an alcoholic father, a mother who was always overburdened with everything and a little bit emotionally distant, Sonia just strives and strives and strives and eventually becomes the first Hispanic and the third woman appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. And along the way, of course, she did it in increments and so many achievements on her part. Her personality being such that she was extremely competitive in her studies, in her work life, but also on the other side, a wonderful friend, colleague, and aunt and cousin and granddaughter. Of course, her abuelita was so important to her. And uh, I don't want to focus too much on that, but for me, before I let her start speaking, I felt that her use of mentors was crucial to her achievements. She really knew from a young age that a mentor, or even anybody in grade school, sort of like a mentor, who could teach her. She asked that girl, and I think it was fifth grade, to tell her, how do you study? How do you do that? And she told her how she takes notes and so forth. And so from a young age, she was ambitious, very ambitious. And so she overcame so many burdens. She obviously, the diabetes was a huge thing because, as we read, she had to inject herself, which was a real learning experience. Her mom and dad were not going to be too good at that. And then, of course, went on to honors at Princeton, Yale Law School, the DA's office, private practice. And a big thing that I was very impressed with, and I didn't know this, being appointed by President Bush to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. And that is a huge thing because that court was created in 1789, I believe, before the Supreme Court. Has a huge history of very famous lawyers and cases as well. And it encompasses a large area in New York, the Southern District. So getting appointed to that was, I think, a very big deal. And then on her way, of course, to the Supreme Court. So lots of other things to talk about, but I won't take up more time. But I will put it out to you guys. And if you just raise your hand, I'll call on you to speak. And of course, no one has to speak, only if you want to.
Isabel.
Yes. So everything you said was in my notes that I also picked up on. But in general, it made me think about today of children who are in a very low socioeconomic area of life, whose parents perhaps are immigrants and don't know a lot about the system, and how it surprised me that even when she got to Princeton, she wasn't aware of what summa cum laude meant, Kappa Delta Pi, is it? And she just was oblivious to that knowledge that so many of our children are aware of. They know where to go for help. They know, I mean, she went to a Catholic school, which she didn't like very much, I think. The discipline there and all, but her mother thought that was best. But her mother didn't know that there were other opportunities in New York City. She could have gone to Bronx High School of Science or Hunter High School. There were other opportunities for someone with her desires and skills, but they were completely oblivious to that. They didn't know. And I find that very hurtful.
Yeah, yeah,
And also, I contrast her desire and her achievements to her cousin Nelson, who somehow got into drugs and
yeah,
had so much promise.
sure.
But for some reason, I mean, he had a father who I think wanted him to succeed, but somehow it just didn't happen for him.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
those are things that I thought about it.
Yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you, Isabel. I found that the immigrant experience seemed actually very familiar to me because where I grew up in Brooklyn, and certainly my husband, his direct experience, his parents didn't speak that much English, and they would never have known about opportunities other than where they told you to go. If they told you to go, you went, and you didn't question it, you didn't look further because you didn't know about it. So it affected and affects, of course, now so many people who, like Sonia, are so capable and able. Hi, this is
Trisha? Or
Trisha.
Tanya wanted to go before.
Oh, Tanya.
Okay,
Yeah.
I found the book very interesting because I didn't know her background at all. I mean, I knew some that she became a judge and all that, but I didn't know that she came from a Latino family and living in the Bronx and all her difficulties in the young life, how her father acted, and of course, the closeness of the family too, how she was so devoted to her brother. And the main thing that to me made a big impression is how she achieved the Supreme Court placement, how she struggled really in the beginning and to go through the Ivy League colleges. And like you said, the diabetes was a big thing to her. To cope with diabetes is very hard. So, and as far as immigrant, I can vouch for immigrants because I came in 1950 to this country.
What year did you come?
1950.
1950.
I mean, 1950. And I had to start from the beginning, of course, with the language. I was already mature when I came, and it was so hard because the beginning, you know, you have to settle in, and I was single before I came here. So I could feel for her so much. But the most important thing to me is this achievement for a woman to become a Supreme Court judge is a big, big thing to me. And I was very much impressed by this book. I loved it.
Oh, wonderful. I loved it too. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. Trisha? Yeah.
I read the book a number of years ago, and I confess that I have not refreshed myself on it in the last week as I had intended to. But I loved it. And to me, it just speaks of the energy of immigrants and the value of that energy and determination to succeed. I also I felt for her in her experience at Princeton. Princeton is it has not typically been a very friendly place for women. I guess maybe it's getting better. But I think college is hard. These Ivy League schools are very hard for anybody. And for her, it's just astounding to me that she endured and survived.
Yeah.
Who was I was reading about somebody else recently who was very bright and overcame tremendous obstacles. And I'm sorry, I cannot now. It'll come to me at some point. Yeah. But I love the book. I love the book.
Good. Thank you. Anne, did you want to speak?
Michelle Obama went to Princeton.
That's right.
And had difficulty as well. I liked her mother. I thought her mother, you know, I didn't know about private schools growing up, and I grew up in a very, you know, just suburban place in Pennsylvania and small town. But I thought her mother was very wise in sending her to the Catholic school because it was better than she got more out of education than she would have at the public school because they looked down on the kids who couldn't speak English. They thought they were dumb, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I think that her mother and she worked very hard to pay the tuition for those kids.
Yes,
But,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I was very impressed with the book. I mean, it's one thing to be Black, but the Black people speak English. Latinos are brown and they don't speak English. So it's much harder, I think, for them
Absolutely.
to get going.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I read the book a while ago, but I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne. Who else would like to
You're
talk?
welcome.
Judy.
Okay, I have not read all of the book. I've read about a third of it because I first got it from the library at the end of last week. But I'm up to the point where she's in high school.
Mhm.
And, I was thinking about she had this alcoholic father who loved her, but in a way he was like the character in A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Right.
That's what it reminded me of,
Me too.
when I was reading it. But somehow, because she seems to have this extended family that's very loving, they sort of, I think, fill the void for her and fill the void with the mother being somewhat, disconnected and involved in herself. But I was very struck with the time, after the father died, her mother went into this mourning and she'd lock herself in a room, and Sonia really sensed that something was not right. And, one morning she just explodes at her mother and says, you got to stop this. And, and it was like, bingo, she hit the switch on her mother and the mother came around.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very insightful for someone who, I guess maybe she was 13 years old at the time.
Yeah. It was very brave, I thought.
Yeah.
Sonia. Really. Yeah.
So I intend to finish the book because I am really enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll love the whole thing. You'll love
Yeah, it's sort of like, I know how it ends. So it's,
Yeah.
now it's not, ruining the book for me.
Yeah. There's a nice epilogue, and read that too.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Who else? Abby.
So I really enjoyed the book a lot. And I thought it was really interesting because the way that she wrote was just very down to earth. It was like, especially in the beginning of the book, it was like you could just be reading about anybody in anybody's life, like ordinary. I don't consider her ordinary whatsoever. She's extraordinary. But the way that she writes about her life, it could just be, anybody's ordinary immigrant lifestyle and life. And throughout the book she does put out there how she felt like she got in the Ivy League because affirmative action had just started, and she feels like she maybe certain things she got in because of other things. But I felt like I kept thinking about that, like, she worked really hard and she was exceptionally bright, obviously, because she had gotten like 100% on the Regents or something, for the math test, and they didn't believe that she got it and what have you. But, and she worked very hard, and there's a lot of people and a lot of kids who work very hard, but it's that special, it's like Obama too. It's just that there's this special quality, it's a special thing about them. And she sought mentors, and she understood that at a young age where most kids don't understand that. But I also think that the people were also interested in mentoring her, because a lot of times people try to get mentors, but if you're not liked, or if somebody doesn't think that you work hard enough or work the way that they think, that they don't want to mentor you. So I think there was just a very special quality about her, that she was going to make it to the Supreme Court no matter what circumstance. That's how I felt. Like if it was, if she was born today, she would have still made it somehow, to the top of the top. And the other thing is that I really I love the way she thinks and she thought, and I'm even happier reading this book, knowing that you're on the Supreme Court, the way that you view things and you view
Yes.
fairness, and how she felt bad after, convicting someone. The lawyer's going out for drinks and she's like, I don't want to celebrate. I just,
Right.
put someone away for life or what have you.
Right.
Um, so yeah. And the last thing I wanted to say is, I noticed toward the end, which was interesting, because the beginning of the book, I really liked the writing style. I thought it was very plain. It was very easy to
Personal.
read,
Yeah.
personal. And then when she talks towards the end about anything to do with law or whatever she was doing, all of a sudden the text got very technical. And I thought, well, this is kind of her, but this is her personality, right? Like she can relate to kids, and they love her, because I think she can, project that I'm every person's person, and yet she can walk on the Supreme Court and, it's like another person. I mean, so that was fascinating to me, but I really loved the book. It was very powerful.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, such a spectrum of personality sort of on her part,
Yeah.
I when you mentioned her principles, I outlined, did you want to say anything else, Abby?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I outlined something towards the end, when she spoke with a student at her school who told her that, why do you have such principles? You can't be like that. And she says, our conversation ended on an unsettled note, but I have spent the rest of my life grappling with her accusation, this student's accusation.
That's right.
I have since learned how these considerations are addressed in the more complex language of a moral philosophy, but our simple exchange that day raised a point that remains essential to me. There is indeed something deeply wrong with a person who lacks principles, who has no moral core. There are likewise certainly values that brook no compromise, and I would count among them integrity, fairness, and the avoidance of cruelty. And I thought that was especially resonant for our times, and the way she said it was just very important.
Deborah, do you have a page number for that quote?
I do. On the hardcover book, it's page 300.
Thank you.
At the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I realize I have got to give this book to both of my granddaughters.
Oh, wonderful gift.
Yeah.
Wonderful gift. Yeah, I'm thinking I think my daughter's read it, but I'm going to make sure. Yeah, I have other, I mark up, put Post-it notes all over the place, but let me finish going around. Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi.
I also love this book. Some of the things that jumped out at me, and some of the things other people have just said brought them up to my mind. I was impressed with how much she valued listening, and that from her childhood on, she did that because she knew so often she was going into situations where everybody else knew a whole lot more than she did.
Right.
And she needed to figure out sort of the lay of the land, but that the listening also became part of who she was as a human being, in terms of those values that you just talked about, that she said she came to believe in and understand and look for. So the listening really, I just thought that was a theme in her whole life. And of course, as a Supreme Court justice, I think that comes in handy.
Of course, yeah, of course, yeah.
And then another thing that struck me is how she was very self-conscious of what kind of skills she needed to do what she thought was valuable to do, what she wanted to do. So that the nuns talked about, I went to parochial school, so yes, accumulating facts and memorizing and that sort of thing was highly valued. And she mastered that. But then she realized later in life, I think that after she got to Yale, I think it was, that she was weak on two things: analysis.
Yes.
She had mastered gathering the data, doing the research, and that which included going out into the community when she first worked in New York. But she could sit there with those facts, but not put an argument together about what they meant, and then how to develop that. And she recognized that that was a weakness in herself. And when whoever talked about the mentors, did you do that at the beginning, Deborah? That she needed some help with that. And then the other thing were her writing skills. I've been a teacher pretty much all my career, and writing skills is not something, as any of the rest of you that have done any teaching, you may have noticed students don't value that a whole lot in large numbers. Not everybody, and they have difficulty with it. And to be told you really need to, I'm thinking of someone now who went to a program at BU in public health, and she's brilliant. She won all kinds of awards. She just hated writing, and I met a student at an event who knew her, and she said, "Oh yes, she remembers you. She's talked of you because you were always on her case about writing." And so I guess for personal reasons, she validated things for you, and as an ordinary person, we all come to struggle with these different kinds of things in our lives, whether they're what we're doing for a living or just how we interact with everybody else. So I just loved her thoughtfulness of trying to figure things out. And it was interesting. The more she got into analysis, the person who talked about the change in writing, was that you, Abby?
Yes.
Yeah. Then from the narrative, kind of to let me put this together and analyze it. It got much more complex, etc. So it hit me right away. But I liked her as a person as I read this book. And I could see her changing and all those kinds of things. She recognized her, I don't want to say weaknesses, but her, various kinds of issues. And then finally, another point, I loved the way she formed communities to be a part of. And that when she had to face challenges, she had those different communities. I mean, they started with the extended family, but her own, personal, individual family, and then extended also at the same time, actually. But she always formed those different friendships and communities that supported her. All of those people that showed up. I mean, you would expect a lot of people to show up when you're becoming a Supreme Court justice, but and I think even with that district court appointment, there were many people. So that impressed me. And then finally, she set goals for herself. She's constantly setting short-term goals, and then that long-term goal. That anything is possible, and how do I get there?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Would anyone? Isabel.
On another note, completely, her relationship with her mother was always threaded through the book. At the beginning, as we know, we said it was hard because her mother wasn't there for her. But later on, they had a very positive yet negative, like typical. As she was growing up, her mother, I think, would say, why don't you dress better? Look at how you are.
Yeah.
And, and there was always that tug back and forth. But then
Yeah.
when she matured, everything changed more positively, but it was always there, I think,
Yes.
how to deal with her mother. Her mother had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, and though she went on to good things,
Yeah.
becoming a nurse, I think, and improving her own life, there
Yeah.
was always that back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes her human.
It does. It does. I have to say, personally, it was very, very strange to me. Her mother reminded me so much of my mother in so many ways, even physically. She looked like her. It was kind of uncanny. And her relationship with her mother, my mother would always say the same thing, you know, do this, do that. You know, she was a little emotionally distant as well. And but she meant the best. She worked hard, so hard her whole life. She never didn't work. So many things about her. And so I looked at Sonia's in response, Sonia's relationship with her, and looked into myself a bit. And you can learn so much. I mean, I think what Jennifer said about nurturing your relationships with, whether it's mentors or whoever, you know, I felt like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think I learned a lot from her book, and I learned a lot from Sonia about kind of how to be a better person, maybe, you know, better, whatever, daughter, friend, colleague. And that's why we read, you know, we try to be the best person we can be. But I just want to read a little bit about, I was struck by, again, how well she wrote, especially in the beginning. To me, it was very personal in the beginning, and her style of writing. So she talks about her bisabuela, which was her great grandmother. She said, bisabuela was in her 90s, though she looked 200 years old to me. Her rocking chair of carved wood and woven cane tilted between this world and another that was beyond imagining, wafting scents of talcum and medicinal tea, auras of lace-edged santos whose eyes rolled up to heaven too close for comfort. I thought, you know, that was like only on page 32. She was always already writing to me so beautifully. So I really appreciate the beautiful writing. Tricia.
I've got two comments. Actually, the first brings me to tears even now. I was on a train, an Amtrak train coming from DC to New York. And as we pulled into Penn Station, sorry.
Okay.
Why do I cry with emotion?
That's okay. That's good. Crying is good.
I noticed this woman sitting up ahead of me in a, I don't think it was a first class car. I think, you know, our business, maybe it was. But anyway, I just noticed her waving like this. And the porter also waving to her. And she was the last person off. And I thought, I think that's her. And as I walked by, I shook her hand. And she was so gracious. It was just lovely. Also, that's one comment. And I don't know why I brim over with tears at something like that, which is so simple and so wonderfully serendipitous.
Wow.
But also, I'm engaged in a writing program right now called Story Worth. Does anybody know this? You get a question every week and you are asked to write about it. And it's a wonderful stimulus for memoir writing.
Mm.
This week's question is, what advice would you give to your great grandchildren?
Mm.
I've got to reread this book
Ah.
because, yes, I mean, everything is there. Find a mentor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn to write. Form communities. Listen. I mean, there's so much in this book that you want to pass down
Yeah.
to your descendants, you know? So I've got to read it again, quick, before I have to finish my writing on Sunday evening.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Very interesting. That brings up a thought for me about all these relationships she had, which she nurtured, but she lacked the one relationship that is, very crucial, and that was the relationship of a partner. And maybe she has one now, I don't know. But I throw this question to you as the leader of the group. Do you think it's possible for someone to achieve what she has achieved and become so amazingly ambitious and just rise to that level, and also maintain a loving relationship with a partner and a family?
Well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg did.
Pardon?
I would say,
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she had a husband, though, who was a support.
There you go. Exactly.
yeah, I think so too. I think you can. It's just it's the personality type, because when she was married, was it Kevin, I think?
Kevin.
He was trying to get his own career off and going
Right.
as well. And I think, when you have two strong people, you have to have one kind of in a more supportive position. So if she had found, or maybe like you said, maybe she's married now. I was wondering the same thing, if she ever found anyone, but she could, yeah.
Good. Yeah, exactly. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She had an amazing husband. He was there for her always.
I think her mother-in-law also, right, helped? Her mother-in-law, was that true?
Oh, yes. Yes, exactly. Right, exactly.
And he was very successful in his own right. So it's not like he gave up his career.
Absolutely.
They worked it out.
Absolutely. They were an amazing couple, and she's an amazing. Unfortunately, he died too young, but yeah, I hope she's doing well. Last I heard, she'd gone back to the hospital, and I hope she's well. Yeah, she's terrific. Wonderful. Well, the Zoom is going to time me out in about 4 minutes. Would anybody like to say anything?
Pam hasn't had a chance to talk.
Pamela wants to talk.
Oh,
Pamela
Pam, please. And don't worry, maybe I'll be able to continue.
That's okay.
Never know.
There was a message that said that the host was extending it to unlimited minutes.
Yes.
Did anybody else say that?
Yeah,
I saw it, yeah.
Okay. Pam.
I read this book whenever it came out, which was 5 years or so ago. So it's not fresh in my memory, but I remember so admiring it and enjoying it, and wanting to be at this meeting just to hear people talk about it. But what I really remember taking away is that I hope everybody gives it to their daughters or granddaughters, or they have middle school girls have access to it, because what a lovely story, and very, very readable.
Absolutely.
And I felt like it's in the same line as I Am Malala, which we read here, I think,
That's
and
right.
Becoming, and I forgot about RBG, but just I personally love those kind of books. So if you come up with one every year, that's lovely.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for that boost. And I love those books too. I hope everyone, it sounds like everybody really enjoyed it. But hopefully next month's book will be a good discussion. It may be, as I said, a little bit of a difficult read, and but do what you can, and it's not always a book that everybody's like, wow, I love this, but maybe an important read for us.
Would you remind us what the book is?
Of course. I'm sorry, you weren't here. I spoke about it earlier. It's called Nothing to Envy: Ordinary Lives in North Korea by Barbara Demick. Now, before you came, Tricia, I told everyone that I'm happy to place a copy on hold for anyone. I'm going to be at work tomorrow. So I'm actually off today. I'm at home. So I'm happy to put a hold on it for anyone. Would you like me to do that for you? Absolutely. I'll do that. So Tanya and Trisha. Okay. And then there are several books that I'm considering excellent new books. We can't get enough copies right now, but once time goes by a little bit, it always takes a while. And then when I can get enough copies, I have some books that I would like to do. I'd like to do.
So tell us what they are.
Well, I just read the Isabella Allende book, Long Petal of the Sea.
Me
Very
too.
good.
I read it. I loved it.
Yeah, and that would be a terrific choice. I'd love to do that book, but you won't be able to get a copy right now. It's too popular. But I was thinking maybe to do an older Allende book because we've never done her books and she's such a prolific author. Do other people know of her, Isabella Allende? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So maybe I'll do an older one. And then I would love to do a book called The Stationery Shop
Oh, yes, I read that.
by Kamali. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a little thin, terrific book.
With the discussion.
Yeah, and I can't get enough. So we'll be doing them. Trisha.
My daughter just texted me that she is, oh no, it's a friend who just texted me that she is loving the book Rodham, which is
Oh, yeah, that would be fun.
What is the title?
Rodham, Rodham. I think it's a quasi-fictionalized account of, what is it? That
Hillary.
if Hillary had been a man, or if she hadn't been married to Bill, or
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
Rodham.
But it's
interesting.
also new.
Okay,
It's,
I'll look into it. I haven't heard about it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Any other thoughts of titles that people are interested in?
I enjoyed Educated.
Educated.
wonderful
Yes. Yes.
Was a good
That's-
book too.
I agree. That's another one. Another good title.
Another good book.
Good title. Yeah.
Very controversial.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. A lot of books now, kind of memoir-y books like Educated, just coming up from bad places. Yeah, so there's lots of good books out there. We just have to be able to get them. And of course, Hoopla is a great choice, as Anne mentioned, because if you can find a title on Hoopla, there's no wait, there's no hold list. You just download it, and it's digital, and it's great. They just don't have as many titles as Overdrive, or of course, not nearly as many physical books as we have. So,
I have a suggestion for another sort of short book, Afterlife by Julia Alvarez. Yeah.
That's another one on my list.
Okay, good.
Have you read it?
I have read it. Yeah.
Oh,
It's it's short. She's a beautiful writer. She is,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's about a youngish widow. She's like 65, and it's kind of an alternate persona to the authors. And she's lives in Vermont, but it has to do with immigration and getting older and your family. I mean, it would be a good book. It might be more a woman's book, but
it's fiction, right?
it's fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like we're mostly women. We do have some men, but they don't seem to be coming too much. Maybe I should do a more gender neutral book. I don't know, but
one book I thought of is Evicted, which is about the housing crisis.
Evicted.
Right. I think he tells the stories of 4 different families. And I know I've been reading in the press a lot about how people are going to be evicted from, where they're living because of COVID.
Well,
And then with the disasters at different places across America, it's going to increase the numbers of people who have no homes. And that came to mind too, because it seemed to me like Sotomayor was very good on talking about the different places where she lived. and making them into a home kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
And then a friend of mine, her daughter wrote a book called Long Bright River. I don't know if any of you.
Oh, yeah.
It's
It was a New
related.
York Public Library pick. It was.
Yeah, it made it to the bestseller list for a few weeks, and then she was going on the tour when COVID hit. So
What's her name, the author?
her name is Liz, Liz Moore, Moore.
Oh my gosh, Liz Moore.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, she wrote, this is your friend's daughter?
Yes.
She wrote one of my all-time favorite books that we did with the group, Heft.
Heft, yes.
Heft.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. Yeah, we did have a long time ago, before many of you probably joined the group. But that's especially an amazing audio. Yeah.
Yeah. And there might be enough copies out there now. I don't know yet. I mean, how many copies libraries
I'll check it out. I knew she wrote another book, and I wasn't familiar with the title. Yeah.
It also relates to the opioid epidemic, and it's sort of a police procedure as well. It's about two sisters. One who enters the police department. It's set in Philadelphia, and then the other one who struggles with addiction.
I see.
And a lot of other problems.
Okay.
So it's Heft. I know there's interest in making it into a movie. And there's what's Judy Garland, the person Renee Zellweger, I guess, is interested in it. But I don't know where any of that's going now with COVID.
Okay, great. I'd love to see Heft in a movie. I think it'd be great.
I'll pass that along.
Yeah, tell her. Oh my God,
friend,
the audio.
You know, the mother will be very happy to hear that.
Oh, the narrators, what made it? The narrators, two narrators are fantastic. So good. And any other comments or questions, suggestions, any of that?
Well, it's my first time here, so I thoroughly enjoyed today. Thank you all very much.
Jennifer, did you give me your email?
Yes, I'm on the list.
Good.
That you emailed, all those emails that you sent out.
Okay, perfect.
I got
just
everything.
Wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got everything. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, if there are no other comments, they're definitely going to time me out soon because it'll be an hour. So I was wonderful to see all of you. And again, September 25th, I think, not the third Friday, but the fourth Friday, we'll meet in September. And I hope to see you in the library. I'm back in the library pretty much my full schedule. So if you're there, come upstairs.
So we can come into the library now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can come in. So here's the thing. Sorry about these allergies. So you can browse. You can stay for as long as a half hour. You can browse. You can check out books. You just can't use a computer. You can't print. You can't copy. You can't sit anywhere. There's no seating. There's no tables.
Okay.
But
you can browse and you can pick.
And you can pick your books, check them out, walk out. And if you prefer not to come into the library, you can always call us. We'll set the books aside for you. And then you pick them up through a secure entrance to the right. And we have a whole room of holds. You just go in, you need a face mask and a library card. And we have your books set out alphabetically. You take your books, check them out, and walk out this secure entrance. You don't ever have to come in the library.
I went in that room, to get Sotomayor.
Yeah.
I was astounded. It was a huge room filled with books.
It's filled.
Wonderful.
We at Wellesley have probably, if not the largest, one of the largest volume of books going in and out of the Minuteman libraries. So it's a big operation.
Great.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Deborah. I gotta
thank
go.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
everybody.
And
Thank you.
have a
Bye.
wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you all soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
I guess
Be
a week
well.
and then
Everyone be
the
well.
weekday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.